How's that? Can you guys hear me? Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first stream. This is going to be about OSINT, and hopefully we will be hilarious. My name is Ray, Wondersmith_Ray on Twitter, and I am a senior OSINT analyst with a heavy focus on maritime. I am here with my good friends, Alex and Tokyo, if you want to introduce yourselves. We'll see how it goes. I'm admittedly not very good at streaming, so we'll see how it goes. The most I know about Twitch is that people yell a lot, and they play games, and they say things like "clip that." So I'm hoping somebody clips something that I say, because I think that goes up somewhere and makes you cooler. I don't know. Alex, have you streamed anything before? Oh, we can't hear Discord. Can you hear me now? Great. First hiccup. All right. Let me try to add Discord here. All right, talk. Say something. It was working when we tested it. They can't hear you. They can hear me desperately trying to fix this, but... Yeah. All right, I'm going to mute myself and fix this really quick. I'm going to... I'm removing Discord audio. Can you hear anything yet? Anything?
I could hear us, and we had a
There you
little bit
go.
of background noise.
Working?
I think so. Can you hear me? Yeah. There we go. I don't know what that was because I didn't do anything. So it did the same thing when we tested
It happens.
Yeah, I think there might be a delay or something in my thing. Anyway, so that was the first hiccup. That was cool. All right. So, as I was saying, I'm terrible at streaming. And OBS is very hard, so I set up the background and I'm very proud of that. So has anything happened to you OSINT related this week or otherwise? I mean,
Yeah, I think I have a funny, at least to me, story as a
I
millennial.
will grade it.
So,
If it's not funny, I'm gonna kick you off.
so I'm walking down the sidewalk in sunny Florida, right by the beach, and I notice something catches my eye over down at the beach, and it's just kind of, I don't know, late teen aged girl, just kind of standing there dancing by herself, but she's facing away from the ocean.
And you pulled out your
it's just-
binoculars and you...
Well, I was like not too far from her, but obviously there's like a little bit of foliage and everything, as most beaches are down here in Florida.
So you were
I
hiding
look
in the
over and
bushes.
she's just like.
Oh my god.
And then like, so I realized she's like kind of standing there, like weirdly dancing by herself, and I don't really see anyone else. And like my first inclination is like, is this person high on drugs? Like, who would actually do that? And really, like, as I look through it back, this must be kind of similar to the first time someone put a Bluetooth headset on and was just walking down the street, just kind of walking and
talking to
talking to
themselves?
herself. Yeah, everybody's like, oh,
True.
what are you crazy? But now, like, you see someone, you're like, oh, they're wearing AirPods.
So when you
And,
say dancing, do you mean
they're
like
in-
full out dancing, like arms and
Well,
legs? or-
when I got a little closer, I was taking a look, like, what is this? It's not like rhythmic dancing per se. It just kind of looked like a weird version of the Macarena. Then when I kind of like take a closer look, I realize, oh, she's filming a TikTok video. So she's making her TikTok video, and in those TikTok videos, they start off and they're doing like these exaggerated hand gestures, and it's like a weird dance and everything.
No, I
and they're-
don't. I don't actually know, but I mean, if you want to
Well,
demonstrate, you can.
I don't think I
You
could even
know.
if I wanted to.
I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, she's doing a TikTok, and like, oh, okay, well, is this, I guess, normal behavior? And that just kind of, it makes me think of how social media really kind of does change our lives. It changes the day-to-day norms, even when somebody's just kind of standing at the beach dancing by themselves. It's because they're making
That's
a TikTok
brave,
video,
though.
and everybody's, yeah, it really is. But everything these days is kind of like posted onto social media, and so much of our private lives is just kind of opened up to the public, which wasn't the case 20, 30 years ago.
Oh no.
That was not the case. You wouldn't have like
Yes.
all your life details kind of up there, and even posted willingly is probably the other side of it. And so, as like a privacy and an open source and OSINT enthusiast, these types of things they kind of make you wonder, like, what else is known of me? What does my social media footprint look like?
Yeah.
What information am I leaving out there? And we live in an ever connected world these days, where you can not only find out little bits of information, but in aggregate, you can compile bits of information and make actual assessments and come to draw conclusions. And if you are a privacy advocate, then those things are obviously of concern, right?
Yeah, I think it's
So-
weird because I have young children and I often think like I grew up in, AOL chats and AIM and Trillion. We had the internet, but it was like it came on a disc delivered to your house every month. So, like, our parents didn't really have to police that, but we do, and I don't even know how to begin doing that. And I do work
Yeah.
with organizations like the Innocent Lives Foundation and Operation Safe Escape, and I see the footprint that is out there from kids, and it's incredible.
So it's funny you say that because there is a joke. It's a little outdated now. It said behind every successful job interview was a deleted Facebook account. And if you just take a look at the journey of Facebook, I mean, when it first started, you needed a .edu email to sign up for it, right? So you had to be a
Yeah.
college student.
Really?
And then at a certain point, it did get opened up to the public, and then like everybody started getting on Facebook, and all the if you were in college and it was just kind of a college account, and maybe everyone posted things in college that maybe they wouldn't word it the exact same way, a work environment.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you think of like 10 years ago, I think maybe employers cared a little bit more of like your social media footprint and maybe what crumb trails you left behind. And maybe they expected you or hoped that you didn't have social
I don't know.
media
Do
accounts.
you see that they print them out now? Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
well, I guess that's
Wow.
true too.
They'll print them out and hand them to you in your
So-
interview or whatever. Here's a
Oh my
stack of
God.
all the things
Exactly,
you said.
yeah. I mean, even like think of all the government positions where somebody digs up a tweet from like 15 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, well, back then you said, you said that. Do you want to defend what you said right
Back
now?"
when you were
And
10 and a
we-
half on Facebook.
Right, and so, but this is kind of a new reality we live in, where you're almost expected to defend things that you just say kind of in an everyday manner, because whatever goes onto the internet kind of gets like archived. It just never goes away. It just,
Yeah, and even with
immortalized.
archive.io, it's literally archived. I mean, those pull up
Exactly.
social media. You can pull up Twitter and other things on there.
And so, yeah, from our perspective, because we are like-minded here, we look at this and we think of these, and we can see the drawbacks to TikTok, right? We can see the drawbacks to any social media platform, where we're saying, yeah, well, what's it costing me to post this online just to have, fake internet points in the form of likes? What is my footprint? What is that? And maybe you doing a dance on TikTok is kind of meaningless.
Unless they show it at your job interview.
Unless they show it at my that's actually a very good point. Unless they show it at my job interview, but I think I know we were chatting before the call. Tokyo, you had a really good example of I believe it was some medical data.
Yeah, you have a good perspective
Did
outside of the
you,
U.S.
Yeah, I think that would be example. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also have to agree. I feel guilty of the Facebook thing, because I did. Yeah, back in college, we used to use Facebook for pretty much everything. We had to have it. Literally, we had to have it.
And I don't think you're going to stop people from using it. I think it's more about
No.
teaching them
No.
how not to give away everything, or set your profile to private, or whatever you have to do to not leak everything.
Absolutely, and this is you're talking about the NHS, which I really wanted to mention is this is what I've been looking at for the last couple of weeks. So basically, lately they've told us, or in England only, that basically they will start to share our patient data with other companies. So I think so. I've actually just looked this up today, just to be 100% sure that I've got all the facts. But they have deferred the date of the opt-out process for the data sharing, because a lot of people have been complaining that this is such short notice, and no one really knew exactly what to do. So they're basically looking to, from 1st of September now. It used to be 1st of July, but it's now 1st of September. They're looking to share our patient data. Most of our sensitive data will will basically be shared from our doctor's practice.
And you're talking about
forward
everything.
and even more forward.
Like
yeah,
communications and everything.
Well, they have a do's and don'ts. So they will primarily share, symptoms, test results, any medications you take, any allergies you have, your mental, physical, sexual health, everything. You will go absolutely everything. Absolutely, and this is a lot of data that a lot of people started struggling to understand why it's happening. They're actually grabbing that from the past 10 years as well. So this is just like it's become a very big deal in England for the last couple of weeks, and now it is good that this has been deferred, and there's also a chance that if more people complain, that this will be stopped from actually being shared. But they have given us basically two options to opt out. So they're basically leaving it in our hands. You're opted in unless you opt out, which is very clever. But it's you got to do it twice. There's a form that basically you have to fill out, sign yourself, and send it over. So they're not making it really easy.
They don't want you to opt out. Yeah.
This is it. They don't really. They want as much information as possible, and they're just using anything, even COVID, to say how people are dealing with COVID after lockdown and everything. So they're trying to use, obviously, research, analysis, just to improve the services. So they're using all these keywords that people don't really know exactly what they mean. And this is it. And I think now, because people have got a couple of months left, I just feel like they're going to leave it on and then they'll forget to do it. But I've already done mine. I just didn't want... Because the thing is, I think they'll do this daily. So they'll grab data daily from your doctors, or GP, what it's called here. And I think if you opt out on the 2nd of September, let's say, they will have a day's worth of information about you, which would have been the last 10 years. When you opt out, I think they've said that they will not delete what they have. They will keep whatever they have, which is really bad. They will just stop grabbing new information. So again, I've already done mine, and I think it's just it's been quite a big deal for us lately.
And if you go back to the job interview that we were just talking about, I mean, technically they could use that information against you when you're applying for a job or anything. If they have your mental health status, they could use that against you.
I don't think they will be able to grab it. So I think obviously there'll have to be a process who requires the data, the reasoning. So I think it still has to go through some legal proceedings. But I don't think employment.
So what is the purpose?
I think no. So they are they're trying to use it for research basically, and to improve the service. They're just using it's more of how people deal with certain things, how people, what age group people are in an area, how they've dealt with this medication in particular, and so a lot of these scientific, I think, words
How does that work with GDPR? I'm admittedly not very smart on any of that. I'm nowhere near an expert. I don't know much about this, but it's technically they have given warnings and notice to people now, and they have given you the option to opt out. So what they're doing, I think it's in other people's eyes, it's right. You've given the choice. You can opt out, and it's my responsibility to opt out, which I have. And if you don't, then again, you can opt out anytime after, but anything they've already grabbed, they're going to keep. So I think, they're very clear on their website that they're not selling this data. But it looks very similar to that. Giving it away for research.
Yeah, they're just giving it for a lot of the things. I mean, they're still going through proceedings to make sure it's done correctly, but it's going to a lot more third parties, companies than it is right now. So it's something we're not really quite used to, and it's just the data itself. I mean, they're not using names, they're using postcodes, but they say that will be encrypted, but addresses will not be there. So there's very little information. Obviously, photos, images you've sent, they will not be there, or any free text. that won't be there either. At least that's what I've read. But yeah, you just never know
Right.
with these things. I've already confirmed with my GP to ensure that they've definitely opted me out. So it looks like they have. But it's
With these kind of things,
for anyone in England. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of like DNA, where like it might seem innocuous now, but you never really know like what it's going to be used for maybe like 10 years from now.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And I'm glad this has been deferred because it looks like people are fighting, they are complaining, so that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm happy to see that deferred, and it has happened before where things like this, they get stopped if there are too many people complaining or they think it doesn't look right. So who knows, it might not happen, but at the minute the deadline is 1st of September to opt out for people in England.
That's not that long. I do want to say we have 2 people chatting. 2. We need 5 so that I can get affiliate status. So I just want to say, Access OSINT and Espen, thank you for chatting. We're not halfway there yet, but we're getting there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I've never worked with HIPAA. I've never had to. I mean, obviously, GDPR is of interest to me while I'm doing OSINT investigations, but I don't know. Have you ever worked with any HIPAA-related things, Alex?
I haven't worked with any HIPAA-related things, but as you were talking about the DNA example, all I could think about was 2 stories that I read, and I don't know how verified the second one is. I think we've seen several examples of essentially like a serial killer or a murder case that was solved by not necessarily the subject DNA being found by, was it 23andMe and National Geographic, and I think there's another one that does
And I'm
the
going to
DNA
remind
testing.
you here that I am a true crime fan. So
Are you a true crime fan?
I am an incredible true crime fan. You're referring to the Golden State Killer.
Golden State Killer, yes. So they found his DNA, not by his, or sorry, they didn't find his DNA, but it was his relatives.
Yeah, I think it was a cousin
that did the testing, like, and it was so it led them to him. So this is a good example of that information being used for good. Got it. I think it makes perfect sense. I do remember reading an article, so it'll have to take like a little bit of digging up on this, but it was a bone marrow donator who gave his bone marrow to I believe is a cancer patient, and the recipient of the bone marrow, it actually changed his some of his DNA that he ended up leaving at a crime scene. And I won't say what the crime scene was because it was a little gross.
Murder, wasn't it?
No.
That's
but
another
almost
show.
just as bad. I would say. Yeah, that's for the true crime show, and I will have to dig it up. But essentially, investigators were on the East Coast, and they found DNA, and they found a DNA match to this guy who was on the West Coast. And when they went and interviewed him, he definitely had an alibi. He hadn't been in the area. He had people confirming that he was in the area, and it was a little confusing. But then it turned out that because of his bone marrow donation, it actually altered some of the DNA that was left on the crime scene. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, is it possible for us to get to a point that DNA evidence may not be 100% reliable? I don't know. And I think that was. I definitely wanted to follow up more on that story.
That's a
but
weird
that's
thing
also an example
for me as an OSINT, somewhat privacy conscious person. I mean, don't test me on that. Is like I want to see these people caught. I want DNA to be used to track them down. But then I don't want innocent people to get in the middle of it, and I don't like them using DNA that way. So I'm like very in the middle. I don't know what I like.
Sure.
There.
So let me ask you this. So 20, 30 years ago, if someone were to say like, hey, your family album, we're going to make that public, you would be actually like pretty distraught by that. You're
Like the ones
why are you
I
gonna
drew on
publish
the cave wall, or
sh-
you're just gonna
well,
like
you're I mean
rub them.
but think of like 20, 30 years ago, the average family just kind of had like a little maybe shoebox full of photos, or they just made some kind of family albums or whatever. Um, to take that and just, make it public and put it in the newspaper, that would have not been okay. But, with Facebook and social media and Instagram today, I mean, people are having kids and making an Instagram for their kid.
Oh yeah,
And,
and an email.
You can watch all that information,
Yeah.
all that. You can watch that child grow up essentially through Instagram. So let's kind of superimpose that reality onto DNA. Right now, you tell me, hey, like we're going to take your DNA sequencing and we're going to publish it, and it's going to be out in the open. Like I'm not okay with that. But what if 20 years from now, the scenario is that it's become the norm that your DNA is known and out there.
I mean, it probably
And I do
will
think
be.
true, but I do think like although there might be some goodness in that, as it stands, at least here in the U.S., to collect DNA, officers would need a warrant because you need a reason to go talk to a judge and say, hey, I need a search warrant for this. So there has to be a reason to. But if it becomes open source, then it's publicly available, and they wouldn't need to do that.
Well, it's also up to the company that owns it, right? So if it's 23andMe or whatever, I mean, most of them they say that they won't let you, but they do. they'll let you under the right circumstances get access. But in the Golden State Killer, I think they still had to go and get his DNA off of a cup. So they had it, but they had his DNA through a cousin or whatever.
Confirm.
But they still had to confirm it, once they narrowed it down.
And so, and I mean, in the Golden State Killer, come on, State Killer. That's an example where we're like, use this DNA data for good. It's great, but does that mean that all of us should be okay with our DNA information?
No.
Out there.
But how they're spinning it now is, and if I have a 23andMe. My DNA is there. I will admit that years ago I did it. But how they spin it now is health information. So you submit your DNA and they'll tell you if you will have this, or if you're likely to have this cancer or this whatever. So I think people willingly submit it, not for a family tree anymore, but for just health information that they can prepare for.
Yeah, and I think that does kind of make sense. You're going to have people that are definitely going to want to know if they are going to have a disease or whatever, and some people may not want to know because, like, what if it's inevitable and you don't end up living your life to the fullest? But I think from a privacy perspective, what's concerning to me is not everything, just because like it worked out in this certain example doesn't mean that we should no longer have privacy for our DNA. And a counter argument that I've heard to this is, well, if you didn't murder anyone, if you'd have nothing to hide, then why, like, what's your concern? And my rebuttal to that is, I'm sure none of your emails have anything you're worried about that you need to hide. Why don't you give me why don't you give me all your email, username, and passwords and let me snoop around if that's your logic? And I don't think anyone's ever gonna just be like, actually, here you go, this is my email, that's the password. And I think because we all kind of by default agree that we're entitled to a certain amount of privacy, and that's kind of not well defined. Tokyo was mentioning in the UK about their medical data. Here in the US, I don't think that would necessarily happen just because we have HIPAA laws. So if we didn't have these laws, we could literally be in the same exact example. And maybe even it would have happened sooner because, Facebook, Instagram, and everything, they're all American social media platforms, and I'm sure they would love to get a hold on people's medical information so they can,
They will. Just give it
target
time.
you with insulin ads.
They'll have Facebook
Yeah.
doctor's
Yeah.
offices soon enough.
Yeah. That's why I wonder if I ever bought medication from Amazon with their suggestion thing. Are they forever gonna be like, oh, you need insulin? Here's other insulin options for you, and I just get bombarded by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, it's all very strange to me. And how willingly I myself will hand over information even knowing like the result of doing so. Because you don't
Yeah.
always think ahead like 10 years from now what is that going to be used for. I'm sure Tokyo has given her DNA to 23andMe.
I mean, the email idea is such a good idea, and I'll definitely use that. I'll steal that away from you. It's just to get people to understand how, it's not if you've got something to hide. It's the fact that it's your own personal information, and you don't have to give it anywhere, regardless of what's in it. Regardless if you've got good or bad emails, it's yours, and you do what you want with it. No one else needs to see it. So I think I'll definitely use that to convince people to be a bit more careful and just give this a second thought. But I completely agree. I think there's just a lot of people who do things maybe for a family member. But I think is the outcome that outweighs the risk, and I think they do it, especially if they don't actually know the consequences. Because it's true, everything's online. Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
instant gratification. I put up a photo and people liked it.
Yeah.
Or I started an Instagram for my dog.
That's it.
And everybody likes it. So, all right. I have a few news things we can discuss. I know
There's also a good comment that just got put in the chat is you could be in a minority that the people hate, and your privacy is a matter of physical safety, and I think that is spot on. Let's say in any of these war-torn countries, let's say like you're in Syria, and you post things on social media that are anti-Assad, but you live in a pro-regime neighborhood, and somebody sees that, and then they can attribute it to you. That might have some pretty dire consequences, right? No, that's a little bit of an extreme.
Yeah, but even less
example,
extreme if you would think like maybe you're transitioning, or maybe you're in an area where that is not looked at favorably, and that information got out. I mean, that could be very harmful.
Yeah. I mean, in a regular neighborhood, people could just see on social media that someone's about to go on vacation and decide it's a perfect time to rob their house.
Yeah, I mean, that's the traditional, like, don't post things on Facebook example, I think.
Yep.
I'd like to know how many times that actually happens, though. Like, how often people are robbed after posting on social media. Get me that figure.
Yeah. And then another comment, too, is about if you have kids, then they have your DNA too. So if your
Right,
kids,
it's like the
all your
cousin.
children have it,
The cousin,
Yeah.
Unwittingly got the Golden State Killer caught just because they put their DNA in there.
And that the one comment too about the insurance abilities, is there any laws right now, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm really asking rhetorically, is there any laws that exist right now that prevent an insurance company from taking a look at someone's DNA information to get that medical data that you were just alluding to, right? This is why we think it's
Yeah.
good to do it, is to get that
I think that's
medical
the
data.
big argument against it, is that they will
Yeah.
eventually use it and say, we deny you for this pre-existing condition or whatever that we know you have or will have in the future.
Well, we know that you are more susceptible to it, but does that mean that you're going to get it? And therefore, like, either your rates go up or we're going to deny you coverage. Can you discriminate against someone? They haven't even shown symptoms for it. I don't know. So there's definitely some questions there. I would rather be in the situation where I don't have to, disclose, oh yeah, my just because I have a great uncle or, I have the gene for whatever, I now need to pay more money for a disease that
Right.
I don't have.
Like they check your DNA and give you like a sheet. Here's all your bills for
Yeah,
for all the things you might
yeah,
have.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think this data thing as well is, it can be quite worrisome, because for people who are extreme enthusiasts, extreme privacy enthusiasts, and they look into this into the tiniest detail, they might be worried to go to the GP and get checked, because they know that data is going to go forward to 3, 4, 5, 6, wherever it goes, and that might, but again, this is probably for extreme privacy enthusiasts, but that could potentially lead to quite bigger health issues when it just, yeah, stops you from actually going to getting checked up, and because other people are going to find out. And like you just said, if, let's say, maybe in the future an employer has access to this, then it just stops people, yeah, from getting the real help that they need.
Right. Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and actually, I have a real example. Um, in the Army, there's a portion of people that may need some kind of medical treatment, but they choose not to get it diagnosed, because if you have such a
Yeah.
diagnosis, they put you on what we call profile.
Wow.
And if you have some kind of profile, then you may not be able to go to like high altitude parachuting school, or there might be some like high skilled schools like Special Forces, Navy SEAL buds, or whatever you might now not be qualified to go into because you're on that profile. And so I've known people that have opted not to go to the doctor to get diagnosed for something, because once it's in the military medical system,
It's
then
in
it
there
is
forever.
known.
Wow.
And then they can't, and they don't want it to affect their career in the military. They want to go to jump school. They want to go to these other cool schools. And then once they've gone and done those schools and everything, which if you think of it could be honestly more dangerous, then they're going to say, okay, now I want to go get it documented. And so when I have my medical retirement or my military retirement, I can ensure that all that stuff was documented later. So that is a real ongoing kind of example today. And more historically, if you think of like the AIDS pandemic in the 80s, that there were people at the time that didn't want their employers to know, because if they found out that they
Right.
were HIV positive, then they might fire them.
True.
And here in the US, you get your health insurance through your employer. And so now you have a deadly disease, and you're worried that if that information comes out, that you're going to also lose your health coverage, which is keeping you alive.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good example.
Yeah.
And I
True.
don't have the source, but I do feel like I read a story about the Army being concerned, or people in the Army being concerned about like these 23andMe DNA things, preventing them from, or I don't know if they probably don't take DNA from you in any way, but they might in the future when you sign up. They
Sure.
just take it and
Yeah,
use
that
that.
is
That wouldn't surprise
that is
me.
true. But even like social media in general, I would imagine, if MI6 or CIA or DGSE in France, they used to be able to grab someone, put him through training, make him, James Bond 007, give him an identity. Here's your British passport, and go off and do crazy things. Today's day and age, you can't take someone, just give him an alias and start them up.
No, you have to
They have
scrub
to,
their.
you
scrub
have to
over.
scrub their past. Otherwise, you're going to go back. You're going to do a quick Facebook search and be like, "Hey, I just found a picture of you, and it's under, you claim to be Alex Smith, but you're actually, James Bond. You left your Twitter on. You know what I mean? So I bet that imposes like quite the big challenge for any type of working alias.
Yeah. Yeah, I would bet that that's probably a requirement before you start to do anything. Scrub everything. How do you even? The thought of having to scrub all social media just makes me uncomfortable. The amount of work that would be. Tokyo could probably help me. I'm admittedly not very good at at privacy, but conscious of it, but not.
Maybe
very
that
good.
could be an episode we do later where we just kind of walk
Dox me.
through specific social media platforms, and we say this is how you would work on either opting out or unsubscribing or deleting your account.
That sounds thrilling.
type of
Yeah.
I'm
thing.
gonna put that on a list.
Sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
you
It's
can
a good
run it.
idea.
You can run it. All right, we have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna shift to some of the stuff we have for news. Is that all right? Everybody okay with that? I'm
Let's
going
do
to. So,
Yep.
first of all, I just wanted to mention all the conferences that were coming up. ILF Fest is coming up. Layer 8, B-Sides Copenhagen, DEF CON. Did anybody submit to any of these? Alex, you should be submitting to these.
I did not.
You should submit to Layer 8.
I heard about DEF CON. I want to go.
You
to
heard about
CON.
DEF CON. You've heard
Heard
you've
about
heard
it. I
of
wanna
DEF
go
CON.
to it. I really want to go. Haven't gone yet. I think it would
I
be
haven't
great.
gone. No, I submitted a talk to Recon Village, which was rejected, and then I submitted a second one,
Oh.
just because, like, screw you, have another talk. so maybe that one will get accepted. We'll see. That would be my first DEF CON. I did submit to Layer 8. I have this incredible fear of missing out on things, so I have to submit to everything I can. But Tokyo, you were going to submit to Layer 8 this year, right?
I really wanted to. I don't know whether I've missed the deadline or not, but
No.
I would love to share my knowledge on Japan again. In just put all my blogs in one, really. So I would love to. I need to check the deadline, but I think that's definitely something.
I think it's like 2 more weeks.
Is it okay? Yeah, I do have a feeling that it hasn't gone yet, but I think absolutely I would love to share a bit more knowledge on Japan, little bits that I found, and I'm still researching right now. So absolutely.
You
Will you
definitely
do
should.
some maritime stuff?
Yes, I submitted. I'm trying to think of which one I submitted where. I submitted a talk to Layer 8 about, OSINT, supply chain, OSINT, maritime supply chain. And then the first one I submitted to DEF CON was about, it's called Cruising with COVID. Thank you, Presscom, for that title. Nobody wants it, but thank you. So it was going to be like contact tracing people on a cruise ship, like where they got COVID from, where they went afterwards, hotels and whatnot.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I was going to do some OSINT on cruise ship people. And then the second one I submitted to DEF CON was about tracking people who are being human trafficked. Like it's a fake scenario about like a woman who is being trafficked, and then like how to follow her social media post. It's like a whole story,
Okay.
and then we're following it and seeing how we uncover things along the way. So we'll see how that goes. And then
Absolutely.
ILF Fest I am not presenting at, but they did send me some cool swag that I will show. I got this
What does
cool
ILFS stand for?
Innocent Lives Foundation.
Nice.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I got that, and then some cool, like, I don't know if you can see that, shiny ILFS stuff. It's not very clear. They always send
A
good swag.
square or a cube?
It's
Nice.
a diamond. It's not a cube. It's a sticker.
Oh.
Yeah, so I look forward to that. And then B-Sides Copenhagen I presented at last year, but I'm moving this time, so I can't present. But if you haven't, you should present there as well. Alex, you should present somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's good discussion for me to. I don't think I've ever presented at any of these. I think I want to get into that and explore it a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
What I do is I don't make the talks ahead of time, so I just come up with an idea and or a good title and submit that and then worry about it after I get picked. So nothing exists until they've said yes, and then I just like cram it all in. So really, you can pitch anything. You can always say no and bow out. But I'm just putting the pressure
If you wait
on.
until the last minute, it only takes a minute.
I think the issue is that in InfoSec and in OSINT in general, we always hear from the same people, and maybe I'm one of those people, but it would be nice to hear from some people who are not on Twitter all the time, or, we're not seeing their faces all the time. So that's for both of you. That's your pressure for the week.
Yeah, it's peer pressure.
On that note,
Signing up right now.
No, you're not. I'm gonna switch over to my, hopefully I don't break everything right here. You can still see it, right?
I still see the same 3 boxes. You, me, and Tokyo.
You don't see Chrome?
Nope.
Yep, it just came up on Twitch actually. I didn't see it on Discord.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys are following this in the news. Probably not, because I'm a crazy ship person. This is not a good segue, really, but so okay, everybody can see ships. So I do a lot of OSINT maritime research, like I said. This Iranian ship called the Makran is, let me search for Makran. Ship. So this ship is, I'm trying to find a good picture of it. Here we go. Okay, so this ship here, the Makran, is an Iranian ship, an Iranian warship that used to be an oil tanker. So they converted it into, let's see if I can make this bigger. They converted it into a warship, and they're concerned about it taking oil to Venezuela, delivering oil to Venezuela. And the reason that they would be doing that is because as a warship, they skirt around the embargo on oil, because under maritime law, a warship is entitled to sovereign immunity. So you can see here how heavy it is. There's all kinds of stuff on it, cannons. It's definitely a warship, but it's full of oil. So they've been tracking this ship along with the Sahan, I'm butchering that. And they're concerned about it taking oil to Venezuela. So I just wanted to show this, and then I wanted to bring up marine traffic and see if I can find this on marine traffic. Have either of you seen this in the news at all?
I haven't seen this specifically, but Iran loves to use those the fast, we call them FIACs, fast inland craft. The little boats that almost look like small fishing boats. They use that kind of militarily, I think, for their navy. So it's kind of interesting seeing those being loaded on that one ship. And then my other thought is, you have an oil tanker converted to be a warship. I mean, if you engage that ship and you sink it, you just cause an environmental disaster, because millions of gallons of oil are now in the ocean.
That's true. So I'm using the free version of marine traffic because I know I don't have a paid account, first of all, but so to keep it open source here, I'm just showing what can be seen on the free version, which is not a terrible amount. But we can see where it is now based on satellite. So ships in general, if you're not familiar, they all have what they call AIS on the ship that broadcasts where it is, how fast it's going, what its identification numbers are, and basically it's for safety. So if ship gets too close to another ship, they pick up on their satellite and they know not to run into it, or they know that there's things nearby. But we can also use this to track vessels. So we can see the Makrin is right here, which I'm not very good at geography. Where is that? Senegal. And marine traffic, if you haven't used it before, shows you the ship, like where it was received, how long it's been there. The pay version shows its historical tracks, so you would be able to see like where the ship was coming from, the port calls that it has made. Alex, are you familiar with any Navy stuff, any like AIS systems or anything like that?
Maybe not the AIS systems in particular, but I think it is interesting that the ship is right now by Senegal, because if Iran, just kind of thinking this logically, if Iran wanted to sell oil, Senegal sounds like a good candidate. Venezuela for sales of oil does not, because Venezuela is an oil-rich country, so they wouldn't necessarily want to import it from Iran. But the article you showed did have those missile fast boats on it, right? So that it's not improbable that that Iranian ship left Iran, went to Senegal, dropped off oil, it sold, and then continued on to Venezuela and sold those as arms. Because Venezuela doesn't care what the U.S. embargo means; they're not going to abide by whatever we say. And same thing as Iran. So they have essentially like a buyer,
right? So you're thinking they're doing
that
two
way
different things.
I think they, I think what they would do logically is just make several stops there. It's a long way to go through. It's a long way to go to sail from Iran to Venezuela. I guess they're not going to go through the Suez Canal. It's because now they're passing, when they get to Gibraltar, there's a little bit of UK jurisdiction there. And so I know it's an international waterway, but they would not want to risk that. I do believe a few years ago, an Iranian ship was held up by the British Navy. Can't remember the details as it was going through Gibraltar, and it was an oil tanker. I don't remember how long ago it was.
A lot of the times I don't see them going from Iran to Venezuela, but I see them going from China or Iran to China and then China to Venezuela. Like you said, I'm not sure. Without the historical track, it's hard to say. It's pure speculation. But another thing you can do to track vessels is look on. Oh, that's not the right one. Is to look on Twitter. A lot of people already track them with satellite photos. So we'll see if there's any on here. Yeah, see, some people are already. So you don't necessarily need to have your own account with satellite, like Planet Labs or something. You can go on Twitter and find other people doing the work for you and then just verify it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So depending on date and stuff, you can track them. The crew members. Here's the crew members of the ships. And Tanker Trackers tracks them a lot. H.I. Sutton. You can find a lot of information on them just on Twitter. But if you know anything about AIS data, it's very fickle. People can go in and adjust the AIS. So if this ship is the Makerin and its MIMSI number, which is a number the ship has, but it can change when you sell the ship, or it moves under a different flag in a different area. But they can also edit that in the system. So if this ship is doing something shady that it doesn't want you to see, it might change the MIMSI number to some other like maybe it's this ship's number now. So when you look on here, you'll see it, or at historical tracks, you'll see it jump, or you'll see it, the track disappear completely, and they call it going dark. So it will, maybe it's going up here and it doesn't want you to see that it's going up to this thing that I'm not going to try and pronounce, but so it'll shut off its satellite here, it'll go up here, do its business, come back down, turn it back on. So a lot of the stuff you see is you have to guess or infer based on previous patterns or intelligence that you have already. Or people close by, like Twitter tends to be people, journalists or people who are experts on that area or those specific ships or, nuclear type investigations, sanctions. So if you follow those people, you can generally get an overall picture of what you're looking at. So that was just my
that's
little...
very interesting.
I don't know. I kind of fell into ship tracking, but I find it very interesting. The most frustrating part is how there are no really free sources for historical tracks. Like, you have Marine Traffic and Vessel Finder and all these platforms that show you the current position of them, but they give you no other data without paying for it. So it's very hard as an OSINT analyst without access to expensive tools to do any kind of ship tracking. You have to supplement with things like
though
Twitter.
you did show that they had information of some of the crew. So now that you have persons, it's possible to be able to pivot from the ship to the crew, and maybe you could use the crew to kind of try and track the ship.
Yeah, and you could go to there's sites like Ship Spotter, Ship Spotting. People make their hobby is to go and take pictures of ships coming in and out of ports. Tanker Trackers has access to some data about Iran's movements. But yes, you could potentially look up the crew. I mean, they probably have their names in their shirts. Or in this, which I don't know what that is, a passport or something that they probably shouldn't be holding up. Oh, maybe they voted?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Can't really tell.
But even just, they'll post PR information. And we're great for this, the United States. Just tracking our ships is so easy because they post basically every movement anywhere.
Yeah.
You just have to look for it between all the social media sites. You can usually find something to pivot from that doesn't require a pay service.
Yeah.
There's a few I follow, like H.I. Sutton is a good one, and they post stuff daily about submarines and whatnot. And then, one thing I do, if you're into ship tracking, you could make a tweet deck on Twitter, and you can follow all these people, and then, every day you can look at where your ships are based on who is posting about them. It's a harder way to do it than to pay, $90K or whatever it is for these services, but if you're trying to not pay that, there are ways around it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull up Discord.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's already after 4.
I know, it's after 4, and we didn't really mess up that much.
We were worried that we weren't going to be able to fill the hour, and we've already kind of gone a little over.
3 whole minutes. That's a long time when you're on video.
We-
Okay, well, so we might have gotten 5 people chatting at one time. That's a record. I'm glad that you guys could join me today. I hope you will come back. And the idea behind this, which I should have started with really, is the idea behind this stream is I know there's a lot of OSINT streams out there, or at least a few good ones. OSINT Curious, I know Bellingcat does one. Innocent Lives does some GeoGuessr stuff. I wanted it to be more, I hate to say podcasty, but I wanted people to sit down and just have a conversation and like joke about things and maybe talk about stuff that they do at work without saying what they do. You know, just in the field type stuff that you don't really hear about too often. So this was really
I
great
agree.
today. What was that?
I said I agree. You know,
Oh.
yeah, I think it's a great idea, and yeah, I'm grateful to be part of your first stream.
Yes.
yeah, thanks for setting this up, Ray.
Yeah.
It's been excellent.
And I hope everybody enjoyed it that was watching. I didn't screw up too bad. I'm very proud of myself.